my September 11th story actually starts the night before, because I was working in the firehouse on that Monday night. And it was a funny thing because there was a boxing match between the FDNY and the NYPD. And I had just been a cop for almost 6 years, and I was only 7 months on the job. So as the fight was going on, 3 of my friends were actually boxing, but they were on the PD side. And one of the sergeants that worked in my precinct, the 6-7 precinct, was the boxing coach. So these guys were my friends, my brothers, my coworkers, and guys I knew actually from the old neighborhood that I grew up with. So I was cheering for them at the night, and all the guys in the firehouse was like, you're a fireman now. You got to stop cheering for the cops and stop cheering for the firemen, So they were kind of busting my chops that night. And then the following morning when I got up, I had to ask to leave early because my wife had to go to work at a dentist office she was working at in Brooklyn. And I had to ask the senior man to leave early, which you're not supposed to do when you're a probie. I was a probationary firefighter. And they said, okay, no problem, but we shouldn't let you leave because of last night. We're still mad at you, So we kind of joked in the morning. And I went to the senior man. I asked him if I could leave. He said, absolutely. Just make sure you tell the boss. So I told the boss I was leaving early. And then I got relieved by one of the members that was coming in. And I got in my car and I started to drive home. I was in the north side of Williamsburg in engine 212, driving on the BQE back to Bay Ridge. And it was a beautiful morning. Anybody who was in New York that day has their own story about this day, but everybody remembers just what a perfect, beautiful day it was. And I couldn't wait to get home because I was going to spend the day with my daughter, who was only like 18 months old. I'm already getting a little, because it's just, I remember that day like you can't believe. And I'm driving along the BQE, and all of a sudden I look and I see a little smoke coming out of the trade center. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a high-rise fire in the trade center. So I call my wife. Well, first I called the firehouse to say, hey boys, you're going to be going to Manhattan. There's going to be a multiple in the trade center. And, we were close to the Williamsburg Bridge. So we went to Manhattan quite often on relocations when there was big fires in Manhattan. They had already left. So I got no answer. Next phone call I made was to my wife. I was like, yo, Kat, I was like, put on the TV. There's a high-rise fire in the trade center. And I said to her, my exact words, how stupid. I said, I can't believe I left work early so you can go to work and I'm missing the job of my career. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, I would be telling our grandkids that I fought this fire in 40 years from now. Stupidly, right? Just thinking that it was going to be a little small plane that hit the thing and, we're going to go in there and save everybody and put the fire out. And I would have been a part of that, because when you're a fireman, you want to be a part of that. You want to be at those fires. You want to do a good job. That's what you train for. Stupidly, and then as I'm talking to her on the phone, I put on the radio, 1010 Winds, whatever I was listening to, just real quick. And I go under the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge. And now I'm coming out through the promenade, but I can't see the Trade Center anymore. And all of a sudden she goes, where the F are you? I was like, I'm under the Brooklyn Bridge. She said, another plane just hit. It's a terrorist attack. And at that moment, she saw what a lot of people saw on TV, which was the second Trade Center getting hit and the explosion. And I came out from under the Brooklyn Bridge on the promenade, which is the actual best place in the entire world to see the New York City skyline. And I saw in front of me what was absolute hell. I saw a split second after the second plane hit the South Tower, the whole thing just in an explosion. And everybody just stopped the cars and was just like shaking, like, oh, you could feel just the tension that just happened in that moment. And then everybody just looked around at each other in the cars, and we just started creeping slowly to get home. So it took me a little while to get home because everybody was slowing down. And I got off on the Hamilton Avenue exit and I pulled down, and I was going to take the streets home because I was like, I can't stay on the highway no more because I got to get home. And as I got to like 20th Street, I stopped at a red light on 3rd Avenue under the Gowanus, and I could see some papers coming down that had like burning papers, like from the Trade Center. That's how far the debris was falling already. And I just remember being like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I get home, I park my car, I get out of my car, and one of my neighbors, Jackie, is walking up the street. And I'm like, yo, Jackie. And she was in the middle of the street, 8 months pregnant, 2-year-old twins. She just had, and she says, you got to go find Donald. You got to go find Donald. And I'm like, what do you mean I got to go find Donald? She's like, he's in the Trade Center. He went to work early. He had to do some deals. He went to work early, and he just told one of his, he was on the phone with somebody from London, I believe. And he said, listen, call my wife, because I guess they were all close, those guys, like we are, everybody in business kind of knows. He's like, call my wife, tell her I had to get out of the building. They're smoking the building. That's the last she heard. She didn't hear from him directly. She heard from somebody else that called him. She's like, you got to go down there and find Donald. You got to go find Donald. And I was like, all right, Jackie, I'll do the best I can. And I literally just got out of my car. So I bring her into my house. I sit her on the island, get her a glass of water. I was like, where are your kids? She's like, they're home. I ran across the street just to check on the kids for 2 seconds. They were 2 years old, and her son, Donald Jr., had just had open heart surgery like a year before. So she'd been through a lot already, And I was like, all right, the kids are cool. One of the neighbors came out and checked on them. And as I was on the way out, one of my neighbors, who was a fireman, said, yo, Josh, the South Tower just fell, or something like that. And I was like, I wasn't really like thinking what he said was true. And I was like, what? Like the South Wall? This, like, what are you talking about? He said the whole effing thing. And I was just like, I just froze. And I was like, what do I do now? He's like, go back to work. I was like, yo, man, I work in 212. I can't get back to Williamsburg. He's like, go to the closest firehouse, go down to 241 or 109. And I'm like, all right. So I go back into my house and I just look at the TV for a second. I can't believe what I'm seeing, And just to back up for a second, just to tell you about Donald, he worked for Candace Fitzgerald. And Sunday night, 2 nights before 9/11, he rang my bell because my car was parked in a way that if I backed up a little bit, he could park his car for the night. And when you grow up in Brooklyn, parking spots are at a premium. Just to give you a little story about how much I love this guy. And I was like, yeah, sure, of course I'll move my car back. So I moved my car back. He parks his car. He's like, oh man, he was so excited because something happened at his work where all his guys at his desk got a raise, and he was doing some renovations in his house. And he was like, you want a beer? So we crack a beer. We sit on the hood of my car. And he's like, yo, I just ordered a Viking stove. I got the Sub-Z fridge. I upgraded all my stuff. He's like, I got a raise at work. He's like, he was really just hitting it on all cylinders. You know what I mean? He just finished building a house in Montauk with his dad for his family. Just like the most beautiful person in the world, It breaks my heart. So anyway, I come back home. I see Jackie. She's bugging out. And I'm like, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it, So with that, I'm like, yo, Kat, I got to go to work. And she was like, what? Like that fear. I was like, I got to go. And at that point, on the ticker on the bottom of the TV screen, it said all New York City police, firefighter, first responders must report back to work. And I was like, yo, I got to go. And that look on her face, like, you ain't going down there. Like that was the look, you know what I mean? And I was like, I got to go. And I did something to myself that I always used to do when I went to work as a cop. I always check money, keys, wallet, gun. And I did that to myself. Like that was because I did that for 6 years every day when I got up and go to work. And I went money, keys, wallet, and I had no gun because I had this thing in my head, like we're under attack and I need a gun. And I was like, because I had this vision in my head that terrorists were going to come out of the train stations, you know what I mean? And I was like, I got to be protected, and I just didn't have it. And I just remember feeling like I'm going down into this war zone right now. And I don't have my peace. You know what I mean? I know it sounds crazy to you, but that's the way I was thinking, like a cop, because that was my default setting, right? I was a cop for 6 years. That was my business. I was only a fireman for 7 months. And, I was only in the street, actually, in the firehouse since July 25th. So that was only like 6 weeks I was a fireman, Anyway, I kissed my wife goodbye. Look at my daughter. And I was like, I just got to go. Get in the car, I drive down, I find a spot, I go to the firehouse, I walk in the door, I don't know what to do really, I packed a little bag with my cell phone and a t-shirt and some shorts or whatever. And I had my backpack, and the first lieutenant I saw, the first boss I saw, I was like, yo, Lieutenant, what's up, man? My name is Josh Calacanis. I'm a probie in 212. I'm here to help, and I don't know what to do. And he was like, go downstairs, get yourself a set of gear. You'll be my doorman. So he had a 4-man engine, which means there's an officer, a chauffeur, a nozzle man, backup, and control. They didn't have a doorman, so they had an extra position on his rig. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I looked at the gear racks on the apparatus floor, and there was nothing left. Everybody just grabbed stuff and went. So I went into the basement, and I got an old pair of roll-ups like the old timers used to wear that had these big hooks on them that you pull up the boots, and an old rubber coat and a 109 helmet. But that wasn't my company, and an old pair of gloves. And that was my gear. And I came back upstairs and I was like, all right, man, I'm ready to go. He's like, all right, get your gear on the rig. And it was an engine from Staten Island that was acting 241. So they were acting 241 because 241 already went down to the trade center. So we had one run in Bay Ridge. A guy fell off a roof and had a compound fracture, whatever. So we handled that business. And then we got back to the firehouse. And there was a guy walking around the firehouse from that company. And his name was Eddie. Now that I know him later on in life. And he was walking around the firehouse and like really, really upset and watching the TV and then going into the kitchen and walking around. And it wound up that his wife was working down there that day. So he was just, as anybody would be, just like, you could just feel it. You know what I mean? That the terror and the sadness in his heart, like you just was palpable, and I'll never forget that. And then the second tower came down and it was like crazy. So with that, outside of the firehouse, there had just been droves and droves of people walking back into Bay Ridge, because Bay Ridge is a town where most people work in the city, the neighborhood. And I just seen people walking from the city back into Bay Ridge. And then there was a bus outside. I'll never forget this. There was a bus outside and there was a transit supervisor that was coordinating buses to pick up guys and bring them down to the trade center. And one of the bus drivers was like bugging out a little bit. He was like, I can't drive this bus. I'm not going down there. And the supervisor said, I'm ordering you to take this bus down to the trade center with these firemen. And he's like, I can't do it. And he got out of the bus. And the transit guy looks around and as firemen, this is like how firemen are. Some guy says, I can drive anything. The guy says, can you drive a bus? He goes, I can drive anything. He puts him in the bus. He gives him a tutorial about how to drive the bus. The doors are opening and closing. The lights are going on and off. The air brakes. And he's like, all right, take these guys down there. Good luck. God bless you. And off they went. These firemen in the bus just went down. So with that, the bells go off for us. Now we're going to act 10 engine. So I think it was 153, if I remember correctly. So we're 153 acting 241. Now we're 241 acting 10 engine. So we have to go down and cover the downtown area on radio runs. We weren't assigned to go to the trade center yet. We were acting 10 engine because they were still getting runs of people trapped. So we get on the rig and we take the BQE and we're coming over the Manhattan Bridge. And there were just droves and droves of people coming over the bridge out of the city. Some people all full of dust, other people crying, people, making the sign of the cross, giving us prayer hands. And, you could just feel the intensity of the moment the closer we got, And like I said, I was just brand new in this business and I didn't know anybody on the rig, not one guy. One guy I knew his brother and I didn't know him, but I knew his brother. So there was a little connection. So I was with guys I didn't know with no time on the job, not knowing anything of my craft yet. Fire service, there's a lot to know and I didn't know anything. And so we get down. Now we're going through maybe Park Row. We took something like that. And now we get a run. They're like, okay, 153 acting 10 engine. We got people trapped at 1 Water Street. So we head down to 1 Water Street and it was like nowhere near the trade center. So the boss gets on the radio and says, yeah, we checked it out real quick. Everything was cool. We ran into some security guards. They were like, everybody's out of the building. It's cool. So we get another run. And it was to 114 Liberty Street, which is just up the block from 10 and 10, which is literally, 500 feet from the trade center. I don't know, but on that block. And we got people trapped on the 10th floor. So he says, okay, we take the run in. Now, as we get closer to the trade center, there's really less and less navigation. There's less and less area we could actually drive through because there was cop cars, fire engines and fire trucks and, ambulances and people's personal cars. It was just a crazy, chaotic scene. So anyway, the chauffeur did an amazing job getting us as close as he possibly could. And the boss was like, okay, boys, we got to walk from here. So we grab some tools and we get off the rig. And I'm just playing follow the leader because I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm just kind of looking, my spidey senses tingling because I'm like thinking that there's going to be terrorists coming out at any minute, and I got a Halligan in my hand and I'm just ready to take cover. And, my mind was in cop mode. It was weird. It was like it was just a crazy thing happening in my head, So anyway, we're walking and we finally get to Liberty and we make a left from, I guess, church. And then we get to the building and there's a car rolled up covering the door. So we had to climb over the car to get into the lobby. And the boss was an amazing dude. And I wish I don't even know who any of these guys are anymore to this day, which is crazy. And he was just like, listen, I'm taking the senior guy and me and him are going to go. We're going to walk to the top and we're going to come down. You guys stay here. if you don't hear from us like in, I don't know, I think it was like 10 minutes. If he gave us like a timetable, he was like, then come up and start making your way up. And they went up, and I was like, please God, let these guys come down alive. And they went up because no one still knew what was going on. And they went up and they did a search, and they came down and they cleared the building. We got up stuff, we packed up, we jumped back over the car, we got back to the rig. And then they were like, okay, you gotta go back down to like Bowling Green, you know, where the Bull's at. So we went down to Bowling Green and we stopped, and we were waiting for another radio run. And then I could see the frustration, and the boss is like, we got to get off this rig and start operating. You know, they need our help over here. You know what I mean? And I think he got on the radio and he was like, we're going to go find a hydrant or something. And it winds up, we navigate our way and we get to Rector Street. And we stop in front of 40 Rector Street. I remember that building. It was where CCRB was, Civilian Complaint Review Board. And a guy comes out of the building from 40 Rector, and he was like, we got 2 bodies on the roof. And I was like, oh man. And the boss said, are they dead or are they alive? And the guy's like, they're definitely dead. He's like, all right, I'm going to make a note of it. He's like, we got to try to get the people that are alive. I just remember him saying that. And I was like, this is crazy. Step off the rig, right on Rector and West. And the first thing, I took 2 steps and I stepped on the torso of somebody's body. Whew. And I was like, whoa. It was just horrifying. You know what I mean? And he's like, you got to check hydrant. So everybody grabbed a hydrant wrench. And I went to check a hydrant real quick. And it literally, there was like hardly any water coming out. Definitely, certainly not enough pressure to operate. And I was like, yo, boss, I got nothing over here. Another guy went this way. And then in the distance, I see a cop car coming through the smoke up West Street. And I'm like, oh man, it's, you know, just whatever, just kind of stuck in my mind, you know, that cop thing again. And it stops right in front of me. And it's from the 6-7. It's from my old precinct. And out of the car steps my boy Matty, that we grew up together as kids in the schoolyard, and we were partners in street narcotics. So I grew up with this kid, I work with him, like I said before. And Matty gets out. He's like, yo, Stumpy. My nickname was Stumpy because I was so short and everybody I worked with was so tall. And he's like, you okay? And I'm like, Matty, I'm like, I just got here, man. He's like, and out of the car comes an old chief that I knew, and his son was our partner in street narcotics, Mr. Ritchie's. And he gets out of the car and I'm like, hey, mister, I call him Mr. Ritchie's because I know his son's like, he's not a chief to me. He's someone's dad, you know? And I'm like, hey, Mr. Ritchie's, what's up, man? He was like, I could see the severity in his face, man. He's like, yo, did you see Jimmy today? And I was like, I just got here, man. He's like, he was working in 4 Engine. Now 4 Engine is right on Wall Street. They're second due to the Trade Center. You know what I mean? They were the first guys into that building, probably. Second guys in. And I was like, I didn't see him, man. I just got here. I'm so sorry. And his wife was in the car, in the cop car too. And I seen the fear in her face. Whew. And again, these are people that I love. I was a partner with his brother, Timmy. His brother, Danny, became a fireman at 114 with me. His brother, Tommy, was covering as a lieutenant at 114 later on in life. I mean, this is a family of, you know, like everybody's family that day, just really good, beautiful people, you know, that were just thrown into this thing, you know? And anyway, he's like, all right. He's like, Matty, take my wife home. He's like, Josh, be careful. And he was in gym shorts. He was a very athletic guy, you know, good looking at the t-shirt and sneakers. And he was like, I'm going to look for Jimmy. And he literally just ran north on West Street into the smoke and gone. And I was just like, and then Matty looked at me and like, you know, we've been through some stuff, you know, in the PD. And he looked at me like, and we always like to joke because we kept it light, but there was no joking in his face, man. He looked at me and he was like, Stumpy, he said, be careful, bro. I love you, man. And then he took Mrs. Ritchie's home and they dipped out. And I was just like that was just incredible, impactful moment of what exactly was going on here, you know? So after that, the boss is like, all right, boys, we got to jump on a rig. We got to get a hydrant. So we get on the rig, the chauffeur again, I don't know who this guy was, where he is now, and this boss and the other guys on that rig, I thanked him for keeping me alive that day. This chauffeur did an amazing job. He wound up getting on Greenwich and Carlisle, which is right around the corner from the Trade Center, really. And then the Deutsche Bank building is down the street. And he gets a hydrant. We got to work in hydrant. So now we're good, right? We're firemen. We got a rig. We got water. You know, we could operate. We could help, you know? So one of the first things that happened was we took that hydrant. And we always like to joke because we kept it light, but there was no joking in his face, man. He looked at me like, you know, we been through some stuff, you know, in the PD. And we And it was just a chaotic scene. And the boss said, listen, I'm going to go find a chief and check in and just let him know that we're here, we're set up. Because everything at that point, the radios were down and no one was really had any transmissions. And everything was done by a runner. You know what I mean? Like someone would just run and go get information and come back and then give you an order. So one of the first things that happened was the Deutsche Bank fire had a gaping hole in it, probably 20 stories long, you know, from the trade center crashing into it. And they wanted to maintain the integrity of that building, from what I can understand about the business then. And, you know, I know no more about it now than I did then. And the boss disappears and he comes back and he says, okay, boys, get your gear on, get your roll-ups. We're going into the Deutsche Bank building. Now, I had seen the Deutsche Bank building and I had seen the hole in it. And I was like, I can't believe we're going into this building. So he's like, we all do our thing. We get our gear, we get the roll-ups. And what we had to do was we had to meet in the front. And there was a little powwow of a couple of chiefs. And they gave like an all hands assignment, which was like 3 engines and 2 trucks. And what they did was we were the first engine to go down, and we had to go down to the 5th subcellar, the absolute bottom of the Deutsche Bank building that was already half torn apart, you know, parts of it on fire, to put out the fires in the subcellar to maintain the integrity of the building so that doesn't fall down on people. So we do our thing. The chiefs are like, listen, you got to mask up in the street. We had to put our tanks on, you know, our Scott packs on in the street because the CO was so high coming out of that building for whatever reason that it was like, you know, it was a deathly rate outside. So, you know, he's like, when we get close to the building, I want you guys to mask up. And then, you know, you're only going to have 15 minutes operating time. And then I want you to head out, you know, because you only have a certain amount of time with your Scott packs, you know. So we all gather. And then I remember seeing this dude, Joe, who was like a crazy dude from the neighborhood that used to come to the high school parties and stuff. He was a big dude. And he was from this truck company that was there. And he was like the only guy I knew so far that I saw that I knew, you know, but even a little bit besides Mr. Richards, obviously, and Matty. And I was like, yo, Joe, what's up? He's like, yo, bro, be careful, man. Like, I just saw that. Like, here's a crazy guy, funny guy that I knew from the neighborhood. And he was like, you know, just be careful, Josh. He's like, be careful. I'm like, you too, Joe, man. And they were the first 2 truck. So they went down before us. We followed them. And as we're going down, I don't have a flashlight. I only got these old rubber roll-up boots. You know, my gear is just, you know, old stuff. And we're just going down lower and lower and lower into the darkness. And at the 4th subcellar was the last standpipe outlet. So we had to hook up to that and then take the flake out the line into the 5th subcellar. So as we're on the way down, I just remember, I said, God, I'm going to close my eyes. And when I open them, put a badge on my chest and a gun on my hip. Because I don't know what I'm doing as a fireman. I feel useless. I feel stupid. You know what I mean? I was a good cop, you know, but I didn't know shit about the fire department. Sorry to say that, but it's true. You know, when you're that young in the job, you just don't know what to do. You're just following the leader. And of course, I opened my eyes and I was still there. Then I closed them again to go down to the next subcellar. And I was like, God, pardon me. I said, if you get me through this, I'll be the best husband, and the best father to my children, son to my parents, brother to my brothers that I could possibly be for the rest of my life. You know, I was like that scared, you know what I mean? It was the only time in my life I was ever that scared, like, I might not make it out of here, you know? But again, I just said my prayers and followed the leader. And when we got down there, it was like just dark and weird, you know? And there was really, it's hard to explain. It was like just this like scene from a movie. And there was a little bit of smoke here, a little bit of darkness there, no light. And I was just following the guy ahead of me because he had a flashlight, but you have to spread out on the line so you could flake it out properly in case you got to fight a fire, you know? So I'm just trying to maintain my distance from the guy in front of me. And I'm just watching his flashlight, but every kind of 10, 15 feet, there's another room. So he's making a turn. So I just got and the water's coming up higher and higher, like it was at my ankles. And then it was a little higher because all the water from, you know, all the hoses and stuff was just coming down to the basement, obviously. And I just keep moving and I make another turn and I make another turn. And finally we wind up all in the same room and there was a little pocket of fire. And I remember the guy said, okay, I'm just going to open up. And he opened up the nozzle and literally there had to be like 10 pounds of pressure when you're supposed to have 200 pounds. And it was just like, not a weak hose in your garden, you know? And he was literally taking the water and flicking it at the fire that was burning. You know, it wasn't raging inferno, but it was enough fire where he had to put water on it, and he was just throwing the water on it, you know. And he put that out, and then we made a move to another room, and the same thing. And then all of a sudden, that's your vibe alert going off. Like, you know, we got like 6 minutes of exit time, you know. And they were like, the boss like, okay, boys, we got to wrap this up. And then they had already, like, this is why the fire department is amazing. Like, they already strategized to have units in place to back us up. So immediately, you know, when we were running out of air, we would be coming back up and they would be coming back down. It was like seamless. And that was one of the first times that I really felt like, you know, I was just incredibly amazed at how professional these guys are, even in chaos, you know. And then obviously me, I'm part of this, right? But, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was just following. And I was incredibly amazed at how organized and professional and courageous these firemen were, that of course I was a part of, but they just blew my mind, you know? And then sure enough, everybody's looking out for each other. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. We met at the stairs. Okay, you ready? You ready? Okay, we got everybody good. And then the other company that relieved us came down, and the nozzle man handed the nozzle, say, okay, we had a little fire in the rooms to the right. There might be something left in the back to the left. We did that area. Exchange of information, boom. And then we went up, truck went up, we got out, went back to the rig, took a breath. There was a grocery store right next to where the rig was parked with like 3 little steps up to it. So we all kind of just sat on the steps a little bit, you know, gathered ourselves together, you know, reorganized a little bit. And then the boss went again back to some command post that he found, which was right by Ten House, which is on the corner of Liberty and Greenwich. And he got orders to do another operation. So I forget what the second thing we did was, but a little later on in the evening, we had to stretch a hose line to feed 79 truck has a tower ladder. They're from Staten Island, but they were parked right on the corner of Greenwich and Liberty, as I remember. And we had to stretch a 3.5-inch hose line to supply their tower ladder so they could start operating and put out the fires that were burning on the pile, you know? And we did that. So we got all the hose together and we were dragging hose down, but we brought too much. So we hooked up the tower ladder and everything. And then we had to bring some back, and we were all just like banged up and beat up, and we dragged the hose back, we packed it back on the rig. And then a short while later, we had to stretch a hand line into where they were extricating the 2 Port Authority cops. And this is incredible because I watched Steve Stous's story the other day, and he ran into the same guy that I ran into in his story, which is totally crazy. So anyway, now we have to take a hand line and stretch it off of 79's tower ladder that was, you know, probably 40, 60 feet over the pile, and hook up to that and stretch off of that into the pile to get another hand line. It was probably like the 5th hand line to bring in to help put out the fires around those 2 Port Authority cops that they were trying to extricate for hours, you know? And this is a story that haunts me to this day, because I made a big error. I made a big mistake, but it is what it is. And I have to just say it, you know? So as we're stretching the line in, we have to climb up a ladder on top of the pile. And then we have to go down into a gully and down up another ladder and then down into a gully, because it was just a massive pile of twisted metal and burning debris and, you know, insanity. So we do that, and we're getting there, and we're getting there, and we're getting there. And as we get like pretty deep in, I see a guy from 212 from my company, and I hadn't seen anybody from my company. And I just want to back up for a minute. When I went to the firehouse initially and I saw that first lieutenant, he said, listen, you're my guy, I'm responsible for you. But if you see your guys, your engine company, if you see guys from 212 and you want to operate with them, he's like, just let me know. And that's cool. Go be with them. You know what I mean? Because there was so much to do, you know? He was just figuring, if you see your guys, work with your guys, but you're my guy right now. And I said, no problem. So what happened was, I did see this guy Zoo, and Stouse said, Zeus, I can't believe he saw him. And he actually helped him out to the ambulance after he got out, extricating those 2 cops from Port Authority. Anyway, I see Zoo. He's the first guy I saw. And I'm like, hey, Zoo, as I'm going past him, he's like, Josh, you all right? I'm like, yeah, man. And he was looking out for me, being a probie. And he was like, did you hear about 212? And like, I just saw those guys that morning, you know what I mean? When I left the firehouse, and I was waiting to hear something good. He's like, they're on the missing list. And I'm like, oh my God, because I did a mutual, which everybody does in the fire department. So the guy who was working for me, I could have been working that day. You know what I mean? I made him work that day because I had to go to work. My wife had to go to work, so I couldn't work that day. So I made him work that day pretty much. And I was like, what do you mean they're on the missing list? He's like, they're on the missing list. So I just remember being like, feeling like this incredible pain of sorrow. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I might have killed this guy. You know what I mean? Like, because he worked for me, And in that 2-minute talk or whatever, I got distracted and the guys were gone. The guys I was with were gone. And here I am in this middle of this insanity, I don't know, 200 yards into the pile and 4 stories up in the air. And I lost my team, because of my error. And I crawled up. I tried to follow the hose line, but the hose line stopped moving. So I crawled up. I said, Zoo, I got to go. So I crawled up and I got to a point where there was things going in different directions. I didn't see my guys. And I was like, if I go any further and something happens to me, the guys I was with don't know where I'm at. And Zoo don't know where I'm at. I was just like by myself in this space. And I was just like, I can't believe I effed this up and I'm lost. I just felt so bad. And I was like, you know what? The only thing I could do is I got to go back to Zoo because at least he knows who I am. I know who he is. We can watch out for each other. God forbid something happens. So I crawled my way back to Zoo and he's like, dude, just stay here, operate with me. We got a ton of things to do. You know what I mean? You could be useful just here. So we're digging and passing up stuff and, on this conga line of people and operations and, doing work, digging for people. And all of a sudden, just a little breeze wafted through where the smoke cleared just for a brief moment. And one of the senior guys in that area where we were operating looks up and I think it was 5 World Trade. And it looked like a birthday cake cut in half and opened up. Like you could see every layer of that building and all the office furniture because the front was off partially. And we were really close to that building. And if that thing came down, it was over for all of us, And I don't necessarily know that anybody knew how close we were to that building because of all the smoke. You couldn't see nothing, And all of a sudden, one of the senior guys was like, yo, chief. And there was a chief in charge of the operation there. He said, yo, chief, look over your right shoulder, man. And the chief looks over his right shoulder and it was just ominous, this big building, I don't know how many stories it was, 10, 15, 20, I don't know. Sliced down, opened up. He's like, I just want you to, we can't leave. He's like, but I just want you to know that where we're operating and maybe you should come up with some sort of exit strategy. You know what I mean? God forbid this thing comes down. And again, it was a moment like, man, these guys are good. They really know what they're doing. And anyway, it winds up, I stay with Zoo, we operate and the guys come back. And then I find them and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And don't worry about it, whatever. And they were cool with me. And I just felt like I really, just made a wrong move and a bad decision. And I was just happy that I was reconnected with them, even though I was embarrassed of myself. And I carry that with me today. Like I still am just so embarrassed about that moment and I feel bad, but whatever, I got to work through it. I hope I didn't disappoint them and, whatever, but they come back, but I was so elated to see them again that they knew I was all right. You know what I mean? And I know they were all right. So we get back to the rig and at the time I was working for my brother's company. He had a magazine in the city called Silicon Alley Reporter and my mother worked there and my brother worked there. And my other brother was the owner, Jason, and they all worked together. And I was the facilities manager. So we were renovating this old garment district sweatshop basically on 36th Street into an office space for him. And I was doing that with him, and he gave me a Nextel phone. We all had Nextels and the cell service was terrible. If you remember, it all went down and no one could call anybody. But for whatever reason, I have no idea, the Nextel was working. So after every evolution, we get back to the rig and we'd get our eyes, cleaned out by EMS and, take a little oxygen. Cause at that point it was a little later in the evening and, there was some continuity, you know what I mean? There was some equipment there. There was some people there, you know what I mean? And there was, it was more organized, a little later on in the day, still chaotic, but a little more organized. And we come back and everybody would take the cell phone and call their loved ones, you know what I mean? I call my wife, I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's cracking up on the phone, like almost to tears, like, I'm all right, honey, it's okay, you know what I'm saying? And after that, we were running out of fuel. And the boss is like, okay, we're gonna need fuel. I heard there's a fuel delivery on West Street. And I'm like, all right, I'll go. Because I'm the junior guy. I'm not a part of the company. I was like, I'll go. And he's like, all right. So I go north on Greenwich, I bang a left on Albany down to West Street. And for whatever reason, Albany Street was kind of like very quiet and desolate. And only one block away was the Trade Center. So it was like a weird, eerie, there was nobody on that street. But on the right-hand side, I think it was 90 West. It's an old building on the corner that's built out of stone. I mean, it's, it's a beautiful old building. And I just remember almost every floor or every other floor was on fire. And on the left side was another office building, a little newer. And every like fifth floor, there was a multiversal, which is basically a portable high stream caliber apparatus to use to, get a high volume stream of water to an area. And there was multiversals like every 5 floors shooting water across the street into that building to try to keep those fires at bay. So I'm walking through this cavern of like just chaos and water shooting this way and fire going that way and ashes coming down. And I get down to West Street and I saw 114's rig, which I wound up transferring into and working for 11 years there. And I see their rig and I was like, wow, my God, 114's down here. Little did I know that they survived. One of my best friends was on that rig. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm worried about these guys. And I get down there and I'm looking and I can't find where, and I'm asking, you know where the fuel's at? Where the fuel's at? And it's over there, it's over there, it's over there. And then I get down to like an area just past where 114's rig was. And I seen a pickup truck. It's so crazy to firemen. They're just genius. They're geniuses. There's a pickup truck and it's loaded with 5-gallon water bottles, but they're filled with diesel fuel for the rigs with electrical tape on top. It was loaded with them, and then there was a line of guys that just stand on line and you wait and you get 1 or 2 of them, and I got a thing full of diesel fuel. So I throw it on my shoulder and now I got a thing full of diesel fuel on my shoulder and I'm walking back through this, craziness, and I get back to the rig and we fill up the rig and we did a couple of different operations after that. And it was getting later in the night. And then at one point, we took a blow, and I was going to say it's about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was sitting with my head down, like everybody took a blow in it, because you could only do so much before the smoke got to you and you couldn't breathe no more. You know what I mean? So whatever, we all just took a blow for a second. And I just remember leaning down and I couldn't see shit because my eyes were caked up. I couldn't breathe. And I just was like catching my breath, trying to think about, okay, just get ready for the next thing they asked us to do. And all of a sudden, from my right side, like coming up north from the south end of Greenwich, I hear like this rumble. And like, it's like guys talking and noise and things clanging and banging, but it's getting closer and closer. It's almost like an army, like guy's marching. Anyway, I don't really pay much attention to it, but it's getting closer. And all of a sudden, boom, guys start, we're here. Oh, I can't even, we're here, brother, we're here. We're here to help you. I get banging me on the shoulder. I mean, 50 guys hit me in the shoulder to the point that my shoulder was broke. It was all the hard hats. And I have nothing but respect for these guys. It was the iron workers, the steam fitters, the plumbers, the electricians, all the tradesmen. They built these buildings, man. They were so proud of us. These guys have such pride in their craft. You know what I mean? I idolize these guys, And if I didn't do this for a living, I'd probably be doing that. And they were just like, we got you, brother. We're here to help you. We don't know how to cut steel apart. You know what I mean? We don't know, we know how to rescue people. We know how to put out fires. We know how to do a lot of things. But this was bigger than whatever we could do. You know what I mean? And we needed these guys. And they must have mustered up somewhere. You know what I mean? They came on buses and they were literally so energized. It was like a breath of fresh air. It was like the cavalry was here. You know what I mean? And it was, we got you. We're here. We're going to help you. We love you. Oh, American flags on their helmets. These guys got pride, And I just remember in that moment, I was like, I'm so proud to be a New Yorker. You know what I mean? Like, I am so friggin' proud to be a part of this department, which of course now I cherish. And I had an amazing career. I'm retired now, but I love it so much, I can't even tell you. And just that pride of those guys, when they came marching through, man, it was just amazing, Shelly, it was just incredible. So they pass us, and then we might have done 1 or 2 things, like operated a little bit, dig in or something. And then the boss says, all right, boys, we're getting relieved. We're going to take up. But the rig had shut down for some reason. Maybe you want to conserve fuel because we only got 5 gallons of fuel, So the chauffeur goes to start the rig and the rig don't start. Now, we were relieved. It was late in the evening. There was going to be another rig to replace us so we could take our rig home, and it doesn't start. So I don't know nothing about, fire engines, but I was like, yo, maybe if we could get a set of jumper cables, we could jump this thing. Shoba says, I don't know, man. I think this thing's got like 6 batteries. So we open up the battery compartment. Yeah, it's got 6 batteries. I don't know how to charge 6 batteries. So I was like, I'll be right back. So right across the street from us was a line of cars with cops in them. And I knock on the window and I was like, yo, bro. And the guy opens the window like a crack. I mean, to crack the window open. I was like, yo, bro. I was like, I was a cop. I was a cop for 6 years. Open the window, man. And he opens the window a little bit. He's like, what's up? And I guess they had a different, operation to serve, right? They were there for protection. So maybe they were waiting for orders, but I just got aggravated in that moment. I was like, yo, bro, do you got a set of jumper cables? He's like, yeah, it's in the green Pontiac behind me. So it's funny, right? The police department must buy the cheapest, ugliest cars because we had a purple unmarked car. They had a green one. So I laughed at the guy. I'm like, we used to have a purple unmarked car. So he laughs. And I go back and I knock on the window and I says, yo, bro, can you open the trunk? Your buddy in the minivan just told me you got jumper cables in the back. He goes, yeah, we ain't got no jumper cables here. And I was like, bro, your boy just told me that. He's like, I'm telling you, they're not in there. I go back to the minivan. I was like, yo, cuz, that dude just told me there's no jumper cables in there. And he's like, they're in there. Tell him to open the trunk. And I said, yo, dude, come on, open it. So he's like, he pops the trunk, sure enough, jumper cables. So I come back and I got the jumper cables like this, in this chaos. I don't mean to make light of it, but you just, funny things happen along the way in life, no matter what's going on. So I grabbed the jumper cables. The guy's like, let's just try it. So across the street from us was what's called the Maxi unit. And it's housed on Tillery Street in Brooklyn. And it's literally, you see this thing, it's a giant water cannon that I don't even know how much water we could put out, 2,000 gallons a minute. It's a giant water cannon on a rig. So the chauffeur jumps in the Maxi unit, it starts up, he puts it next to our rig, and we just let it run for a bit. We try to turn it over, it don't work. We try to turn it over, it don't work. And I'm like, my wife lives in Brooklyn. We live in Brooklyn. I was like, my father's right next door. If I call my old man's the most loyal dude you ever met in your life. I was like, he will be here in a minute to pick us up. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to bother my wife with that because she got the kids at home and everything. And I was like, just about to call my old man and be like, yo, Pops, you got to pick us up. We'll meet you on the other side of the bridge, And I didn't, because right when I was going to pick up the phone, boom, the engine started on the apparatus that we were in, 153 rig. And we all were like, yay. Like, I know there was shit going on, but this was our opportunity to maybe reset. You know what I mean? So the rig starts, they put the Maxi unit back. We get back. They drive me all the way back to 241 and 109. They drop me off. I hug all the guys. I'm like, good luck with everything. God bless you guys. Thank you for keeping me alive, whatever. I went to 109. I put my gear back in the basement and I feel terrible that I took somebody's helmet. I apologize to whoever that is that came to the firehouse and had no helmet because I was wearing it. I put all the gear back where I found it and I jumped in the shower. But the funny thing was I didn't have a towel. I just remember and I'm, it's probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I got no shower, I got no towel and there's no curtain on the door for the shower. So here I am naked in the bathroom in the firehouse. I don't know anybody there, just a crazy thing. And I got the paper towels, seafold towels, and I'm patting myself down with seafold towels. I throw them in the garbage. And then I get myself together and I get in my car and I drive home. And it's dark, so I park the car, I'm walking down the street. This is when you married the right girl, man. I get out of my car, I get my keys to open the door, and I can't see. I really can't even see more than a foot in front of my face. And I didn't even get the key in the door. And the door whips open. It's my wife. She was like, oh my God. I was like, yo, honey. She said, I love you so much. It was just like this embrace, And at that moment, I was just so happy to be home, in my wife's arms, who I love so much, and created this life with, and still my life partner to this day. And just like, it was just an amazing embrace. And what breaks my heart to this day is that how many wives never got to do that. How many mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children were waiting and waiting and waiting and never got that chance. You know what I mean? Whether it's Jackie, the Richies, the Obergs, like all these people in my life that I knew that lost somebody that didn't get to have that embrace still to this day, and oh my God, it was just, a powerful moment in life, And that's really the end of the story. And I wear this. This is class one of 2001. So we were the first class of our list to get into the fire academy, February 4th of 2001. And the back of the T-shirt was designed by Christian Regenhard. And I just wore it to honor the 5 guys that were my brothers, that I knew better than anybody, that I lost because we were together in the academy. And when you're in the academy, at any academy, fire, police, whatever it is, military, like you just have this bond. And we knew these guys better than the companies they went to, because we were with each other for so much longer than just the, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks that we were there. And it was Dennis Oberg, God rest his soul, whose parents were in my parish. His father was a fireman and a lieutenant 114. We loved dearly. His mother was my wife's home ec teacher in St. Ephraim's in that school. Jimmy Papa George, a fellow Greek. Christian Regenhard, who made the T-shirt. John Tierney, who was like another clown like me, just having fun with the whole academy thing. And Chris Santora, who I did a eulogy at his funeral, who stood next to me every single day of the academy. He was the shortest guy in my squad. We did it by size order, and I was the second shortest. So me and Chris did everything together. Every evolution you do in the academy, we did together. And I wear this shirt to honor those 5 guys. And, it's just, I don't know. I just really feel like I'm blessed to be here to tell the story. But there's a hole in my heart for all the families out there that lost tragically, and they actually were murdered, which I hate to say because it makes me so angry and I don't want to live my life in anger, but these people were brutally murdered, and that's a fact. And it's sad and it's terrible and it's horrible. And all these families, there's a lot of trauma there. You know what I mean? That I don't have. And I'm a mess now telling the story, and I don't have half, a tenth of the pain that these families have. And, that's just something that I think everybody needs to recognize and realize and never forget. And that's why I'm so proud to be your friend and have met you. And I'm so proud of the work that you do, because you keep the stories alive of the people that were tragically killed that day. And their lives are really what matters in this story, is the families that were torn apart by this horrific tragedy. And you keep it alive and you honor them, their memory, and the families, of course, that have to carry that weight for so long,
Josh, thank you. Thank you for those words, those kind words. So we met because we are both members of the board of Friends of Firefighters, which provides free mental help to FDNY'ers and their families. How did you come to Friends of Firefighters?
So it's funny, you and I and Mike Barash are the class of 2021, right? I was the class of 2001 for the Friends of Firefighters. So it's just an amazing sort of story, and my feet have been put upon a path that I know is right. And the way I got to Friends of Firefighters is that Damian Echeverrieta, who works for the NHL, is also a board member. Damian's father was killed in a line of duty in the FDNY in Ladder 109. I think it was January 7th, 1974. So Damian is the son. He was 2 months old when his father died. He's the son of a fallen firefighter. And he's married to my wife's best friend, one of her best friends. And we have become friends through the years. And Damian asked me to come on board. And it was just such a perfect timing event, because I have recently retired from the fire department. I have also been involved in a tragic fatal fire. I was the truck boss in Ladder 28 when Michael Davidson from Engine 69 died in Harlem. And I stepped away from the business that I was in and I love so dearly of firefighting on my own accord, but there was some things that happened along the way that kind of forced my hand a little bit. But it's just amazing to me that Damian came to me at a moment where I was just a little bit lost from stepping away from the business that I love so much and the guys that I love so much. I love going to work. I love being a New York City firefighter. I became a lieutenant. I went to Harlem in the South Bronx, and I wound up in Ladder 28 with these guys that were just amazing and beautiful people and hardcore firemen and just everything you would want in a family. Same as Tally Ho when I worked there, and same as 212 when I worked there. Same as the academy when I went through with those brothers. And Damien has a connection to that because of his dad. And he brought me to Friends of Firefighters. And I said to myself, I actually am in counseling. I go to the counseling services unit. I didn't do that for my entire career in the fire department. Even after Mike's death, I didn't do it. But a few months after Mike's death, I just wound up in the parking lot of the counseling services unit. I don't know how, I don't know why. They have an office up here in Orange County. And I just wound up in a parking lot. And I walked into the office and told them who I was and what I experienced. And from that moment, I met my therapist and I started to go. And I've been going religiously now since that time. And actually, I had a session yesterday, which prepared me for this. You know what I mean? And I told a few of the stories to my therapist and I cried a little bit. And, you know, I feel like me coming to therapy has really saved my life. I really, truly mean that. And I really, truly feel that. And this business is a dangerous business. Danny Prince, who's also on the board, his first day was the funeral of Damien's father. Like, that's just incredible. You know what I mean? So yes, we work in the most amazing job on the planet. You be a New York City firefighter, you playing for the Yankees. I mean, you made it. You know what I mean? Like, this is the greatest job in the world with the greatest people in the world that really care and go above and beyond the call of duty on every level, whether it's in the firehouse, on a run, in a fire, throwing themselves off buildings on roofs to save people. I mean, these people are amazing, really incredibly good natured, hardworking, beautiful people, you know? And I'm just so happy to be a part of it. But the thing that happens, which I'm just realizing through my own experiences, and everybody's different, obviously, but through my own experiences, I first got on the job a month before we got on the job. I think his name was Donnie Franklin from 44 Truck. He passed away. We got on the job. Right after that was the Father's Day fire. So before we were out on a 14-week rotation, we were at 3 funerals. Then we got back in the academy. We get out of the academy July 25th. August 28th, I'm going to say, I'm sorry if I got the date wrong, one of our own brothers died. And, you know, Michael Garumba in Staten Island. And we weren't out of the academy for 1 month. And I remember being on the corner, standing with all my Proby guys, waiting to go into the wake for Mike and being like, I can't believe we're already at a funeral for a guy from the fire department. You know what I mean? That we worked with. And then, I don't know, what is it, 16 days later, 14 days later, 9/11 happens. You know what I mean? So in other words, like, the beginning of my career, and same with Danny Prince, started with something that is really horrible and tragic and tough to deal with and process. And then it ended, you know, around a little bit after, but with Mike Davidson, you know what I mean? And like, I'm just saying that this is what happened to me. It's my experience. And I just speaking to the point that I believe that mental health is really, really important. And yes, being a New York City fire is the greatest thing in the world. But I believe in my heart that when you have compounding traumatic experiences, it has to take effect. And some of the stuff that just happened to me right now, crying and getting upset and emotional about telling the story about 9/11, even though I'm alive, you know, I don't have one iota of the pain that is felt by the families of these beautiful people. I know that something in me is just not exactly right. And I have a wife and I got children that I got to be a good father and husband to, and a family and friends. And I have to stay focused and be okay. You know what I mean? And if that means I need therapy every 3 weeks and I cry a little bit and I talk about stuff, then that's what's going to help me. And I really, truly believe in the power of it. I really, truly do. And that's why I'm so grateful to Damien for bringing me on board with the Friends of Firefighters. And this is my jump off point, really, to get the message out of what they do. You know what I mean? Is just really providing free mental health and wellness services for firefighters and their families. And I can speak to this because I did it. You know what I mean? And I feel confident that I had experiences that give me a little bit of credibility to say, I've been involved in a few things that are horrible and tragic, but I'm here and I want people to understand or know that there's help out there. You know what I mean? And I really hope there's help also for other people, like just civilians that have gone through this tragedy too. You know what I mean? It's really like they should be taken care of as well. And I hope to God that they are. And I know the World Trade Monitoring Program takes care of us. And it also takes care of, I think you could sign up for it and take care of civilians as well, because they were down there. They did some heroic stuff that day as well. You know, they were just going to work every day. This is our job. You know what I mean? But they were just going to work. So I just hope that, my message is that, you know, mental health is important, because if you don't have that right, everything else could fall apart. So if you just, you know, stay focused on that and, you know, try to be a happy, positive person in this life and, you know, sort of help each other, you know, like that feeling I had when all those guys from the trades were tapping me on my shoulder, and, you know, that spirit of unity and that spirit of love and camaraderie is what we all need in this world, especially now. We know that, right? But like, that's what I think, you know, is really important. And I thank Damien for bringing me here with you and Mike Barash. You know what I mean? Like, we all just kind of came together and we have different skill sets and bring something different to the table. But the idea is we're all there for one reason: to help firefighters that may be hurting. You know what I mean? And that help
And
is
their
here. You know, we have
families.
help, and their families, of course.
Right. Josh, I was just wondering, so you were an NYPDer for 6 years. What made you want to become an FDNY'er?
So, so I still have my my St. Michael's medallion. I love it so much. We were going through stuff during the pandemic. My mother-in-law bought this for me when I became a cop. I love her and miss her dearly. Maureen, she's the best. And we found it during the pandemic, and I put it back on ever since, because I just always want to honor that part of my life. But I became a cop because everybody else in the neighborhood took the cop test and the fire test and the sanitation. But my dream was always to be a fireman, because my grandfather was a fireman. And always, you know, he lived in an apartment, 79 on 14th Avenue. And every time I was there every weekend, my father owned the bar, my mom was a nurse. So, you know, every weekend or every couple of nights, we'd be sleeping over there. And I just idolized him and his stories, you know what I mean? And, you know, every fireman has somewhere in their house where they have their little plaque and, you know, something, maybe they won a medal or they got a plaque and their badge number. And I just always remember looking at that little area of my grandfather's apartment in Brooklyn and just being like, I can't imagine what that must be like. You know what I mean? And he had a scanner in his apartment, always listening to what was going on in the neighborhood. And anytime there was a big fire in the neighborhood, he'd take his dog Sandy and go to the fire, you know what I mean? And be there. And it just always really, it was always my focus: either play for the Yankees, I wasn't really that good at baseball, and or be a New York City firefighter. And I'm just so proud and happy that I got to live my dream. You know, I really did live my dream. Like, being a New York City firefighter to me is just the tops, and I got to do it in the best companies there are and with the best guys. And every company is great, of course, and every guy is great, but I got to work with some really special dudes, you know, and you know, guys and gals, you know, it was really cool.
And you continue to serve through Friends of Firefighters.
Yes,
So,
happily. Thank you. I really appreciate everything you do. I'm really just at a good place in my life right now where I could help. I think I can help. I actually want to give everybody my cell phone number to call me if they have problems. You know what I mean? I really do. I feel that way. You know, like I've been given a special gift to be alive, have that experience, and maybe be able to share and help somebody who's in need.